Gotcha. I was watching my sister play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I should preface this by saying I actually really like the Final Fantasy remake. I'm not some Final Fantasy like elitist. I've only discovered Final Fantasy in the last couple years, and I love those games, the old ones and the new ones. Great, really, really awesome. But um, I was watching her play that, and there was a boss fight in one of the old like in the old reactor. You're fighting what's her name, Scarlet, I think it is. Anyway, it's one of those boss fights where you're fighting, and then you're working at the boss for a long time, and then you finally get its health down, and then the boss beats you. And I was just thinking about that, about games that do that, that break their own rules. And this was just something that I was sort of like really mulling over, was other examples of this, but also just sorry, once again, I forgot to close the window and someone's mowing the lawn. And I was just thinking about games that break the rules. They set some rules and then they break them. Um, and I guess there's a part of me that's always found it a bit frustrating whenever a game breaks its rules. And those rules can be kind of anything, right? Like in that instance, it was here's the boss fight. In all traditional game media, when you beat the boss, when you get the boss's health down to 0, you win, right? Because that's the natural thing, right? You would think that, oh, I am succeeding. I am doing a good job of fighting this. Ergo, I should win when the bar reaches 0. But that game and lots of other games, occasionally does that, where you get the boss down and it kind of just treats it as like a chapter point in the boss fight and it doesn't really have any impact. And I always thought that was kind of interesting when games do that. That's something that personally I'm not really into. I don't really like that. I generally tend to prefer a game where, if like you beat a boss, and that whole like scripted failure thing has never been something that I really liked. I will say something that I enjoy about like I'm trying to remember if all the Dark Souls do this. There might be some that don't. So don't quote me on this, but in the Dark Souls games, failure is an obvious mechanic of the game. You die and then you start again, and you gotta, get your souls and all that stuff. But the game never, at least in the ones I remember, in like Dark Souls 3, for instance, it doesn't force you to die. It is not at least not overtly. You will, and that's important, but it's not like it doesn't like have a scripted death. I think it's Dark Souls 2 or Demon Souls that has the scripted death. I can't remember. But that's something I appreciate about those games, is that like even though death is a central mechanic, it doesn't have like a cut scene where it's like, oh, you beat the boss but he kills you anyway. Because that's always something that I just don't like. I just don't like it when a game does that. And I get that there's a reason why a lot of them do, but it's just not for me. But the other thought I had while we were watching Final Fantasy, or while I was watching my sister play Final Fantasy, was, and I should excuse a little, because it is like an anime game, right? It's like you're watching a crazy bananas. I mean, it's fantasy, and it's like, to its nth degree, it's crazy. So in these cutscenes, Cloud is leaping like 30, 40 feet in the air and flying around and doing all these things that in the regular gameplay you can't really do. And that's something that's also kind of bugged me sometimes, is I've never really liked in like those cutscenes when like the character does something that I'm like, I can't do that. What do you mean? What that you're breaking the rules. And it's different from like, obviously I'm not expecting the characters in the cutscenes to always be like doing the exact same moves, but there's certain things like that I'm like, oh, that bothers me. But then it made me think of some games that I think don't do that, and they stick to the rules that they have developed. And the two games that come to mind are The Witcher and Red Dead Redemption. And we'll talk about The Witcher first. Ooh, that's my phone going bazuzzle. Talk about The Witcher first. So The Witcher, for one thing, its cutscenes are generally pretty understated. It's not like a really action-heavy game when it comes to like cutscenes. There's a few moments, certainly, but for the most part, cutscenes are often just conversations, which I like. But I like that Geralt is never generally able to do anything that he can't do in gameplay. He's not some like crazy wizard. He can only use the Witcher spells that he has, and he'll sometimes use them in cutscenes. I think of the instance, minor spoiler, when you throw the fake baby into the furnace. That is one of my favorite cutscenes in that game. That sequence is so good. Um, and and he casts the spell on the furnace to prevent it from being open, so the guy can't pull the fake baby up. Man, that game, dude. And obviously, there's some moments where Geralt does a thing that you're like, I can't do that. Like when he throws the sword. You can't throw your sword in that game, but it was a cool cutscene, so it's okay. But there's like things like that. But for the most part, The Witcher is really good at making sure that the character abides by the same rules that you as the player do, which is great. The other instance that I think is so good with this, and it has the benefit of not being fantasy, which really helps, is Red Dead Redemption 2. Like I said before, that game is so great at making you feel like gameplay and cutscene are on exactly the same level. And a big part of that is because it runs in-engine. The cutscenes run in-engine. I don't know if you've ever seen the videos of Arthur, the main character is walking up to meet with somebody. And you know that the moment you interact with that person that a cutscene will start. And when the cutscene starts, you can't do anything. So I've seen people do something where they like toss like a stick of dynamite into the air. And they know it's going to land on the person. And then they go and they quickly run up and they interact with them. And then the cutscene starts, and then the dynamite stick lands, and it blows up the person. But because the cutscene's rolling, the person is invincible, but now they're like a skeleton or whatever, right? And it's really funny to like see how the game will continue in-engine, even if you as the player or like other things are happening around. And I love it. It's so good. It means that like it constantly pulls me in, because I never feel like when a cutscene starts that I'm no longer in control, even if I'm not. Obviously I'm not in control. It's a cutscene, but it does such a good job of pulling you in and keeping you there the whole time. And it doesn't. It's just well done. I think about that game, and man, that game, Red Dead Redemption, is like the best when it comes to pulling you in and keeping you in, and I'm so impressed by that. But that was just an instance that I thought was really cool, and I like that. I like that Red Dead did such a good job of making me feel as the player like I was always. Man, I'm getting all the alarms. Yeah, I'm a gamer. But I'm just so impressed by games that are able to commit to something like that, because it's not always easy, and I understand in a lot of like narrative games why it's tricky to do the thing where it's hard. How do you set up a character to lose, a main character to lose? That's actually something that I've been thinking about lately. When you play a game and it's important in the plot beat that your character loses, right? Maybe that's like part of it. How do you, as a game developer, set it up so that when that moment happens, it doesn't feel, like you're stealing something from the player, like you're betraying them? If you're having a boss fight, you beat the boss, right? You get it down all the way to 0. Nice, well done. But then the boss is like, I'm going to do my super special attack. And then in a cutscene that you have no control over, he one-shots you. And then you lost. And it's like, oh, I lost. And it's like, well, I didn't lose. The game made me lose. I didn't lose. I was playing amazingly. That's frustrating. And I wonder if there's a way to, I would be curious about examples that of games that have kind of worked around that, because that's a tricky little conundrum nugget there. So it would just be interesting to see and hear if there's other games that have made a good use of that. Obviously there are games that like Dark Souls or roguelikes, or like Hades, or I've been playing Hades 2 because it was free on Game Pass, and I got a free Game Pass trial on my computer because I'm not paying for that. Hades 2, obviously, the whole point is you get a little further, you die, you start over. You get a little further, you die, you start over. And you're slowly making progress through, the place that you're trying to get to. In Hades 2, you're trying to get to Kronos. And so, losing is a natural part of that. So when you lose, it doesn't feel bad, sometimes it feels bad, but it doesn't feel like, oh man, I gave all I could and I still lost. Sometimes it feels like, oh, I gave all I could, and the point of the game is that now that I'm back with the experience and the items that I got, I am stronger. That's just the point. That's a fundamental point of like a roguelike. Or a roguelite, I should say, because I guess a roguelike, I can never remember the distinction. I'm pretty sure a roguelike is that you just start over, and a roguelite is that you start over but you have progress. Maybe someone will correct me. Anyway, it's just something that I've been thinking about, and I would be curious to see if there's any games that have especially narrative games that have been able to execute that failure thing in a compelling, interesting way. Oh, you know what actually was interesting? I thought it was funny, but it also kind of took me out a little bit. Was in the God of War, in God of War Ragnarok specifically. At the beginning of that game, you have a fight with Thor. Mild spoilers. You have a fight with Thor, and about halfway or so through the fight, there's like a button mash thing where, like, he's like got you pinned down, and you're like button mash and trying to it's like press square to kick him or whatever, and then you lose it. No matter, as far as I know, no matter what you do, you lose that button mash thing, and then he straight up kills you, and the loading screen starts up, and you think, what? I didn't lose that. I was mashing like crazy. And then Thor's like, no, hold on, you're done when I say we're done, and then it cuts back to the game, and he resuscitates you with his lightning. I thought that was funny, but I also kind of was like, oh, are you telling me that Thor just won? That the only reason that the God of War is able to continue this journey is because Thor was like, hold up, we're not done yet. I thought that was kind of, I don't know, felt a little weird to me, but also I get why they did it. Also, here's a fun thing about good job at keeping rules that you establish. Playing Hades 2, man. Again, slight spoiler for Hades 2. Just a cool thing that happens. I love when you're fighting Kronos in that boss fight, because he's the Titan of Time, right? And if you pause it, then he gets mad at you, the player, I guess, or Millenway or whatever. But I think they patched it because I think he used to actually unpause it. I don't know if he still does, but could you imagine like pausing a game, running to the bathroom, you get back and you're dead because the boss unpaused the game for you? That's like some weird Metal Gear Solid kind of thing. Anyway, I just thought that was really funny, and I thought that was a cool instance of them like maintaining these rules that they have established in a very clever kind of way. But anyway, I thought it was neat. But yeah, no, this was a little more loose and ramblier than my last one. But well, no, all my videos are rambly. But yeah, I guess my question is, how can you have the player fail in a way that feels satisfying for the story? That's like the thing. That's the thing. That's what I'm thinking of. Is it okay to like force the player to fail through the boss being too tough? But you can never account for the fact that sometimes players are just so good that even if the boss is incredibly strong, like incredibly strong, like one hit kills you, there's always that one player who will never get hit. And so it's like, it's just like it's odd. It's a kerfuffle for sure. But anyway, that's it. I'm gonna look at Minecraft mods because that's what I've been interested in lately. Okay, bye-bye.